sometimes a film is ahead of its time, and sometimes these movies are like crystal balls, which pretty much predict the future. And what such film is How You Like Me Now? Now, this was a film that was produced by Daryl Roberts, a black filmmaker, back in the early 1990s. And this is a film that stars one of my favorite actresses again, Sally Richardson Whitfield, and Darnell Williams. I think he's from All My Children. And this is a film that, again, back in the 90s, people pretty much did not pay it that much attention. But when I sit down and watch social media, people like David Carroll talking about the swirling and the reasons why many of your African American women want to swirl, I go back to this film. Now, this film doesn't have the greatest of production values, but it makes a great commentary about, things that are going on right now. Now, in How You Like Me Now, the Sally Richardson's character Valerie is one of these corporate career women, and she's dating a guy, Thomas, and Thomas is one of these guys. He's working a low wage job, and he doesn't have much ambition, and he really doesn't want to do much of anything, and he's not really paying attention to his woman, and that's the primary story in the film, and she's really getting tired of this guy because he really doesn't want to do anything. He really doesn't want to, do much with his life. And she's looking, and she's at that. Decides, she's tired of this guy. She just decides, to go out, and she sees a white guy one day and decides, what? She knows what he is, and she decides she wants to swirl with this guy. She decides, what? I'm gonna dump this trifling Negro, and I'm gonna go get me a white guy. And the film, shows how how things just fall apart. And when I was watching this movie, back in the day, I didn't really think much of it. I just like watching Sally Richardson's performances. But now that I look at this film, with a more critical eye, about 10 years later, because I bought this back in 2005 as a birthday present for myself, I think about it now, and I think about all the controversy that was on Chad Factor with Crystal and Karas, and I think about David Carroll and the Queasy 100's videos about the swirling and the swirling controversy, and I think about the arguments that Mr. Carroll made regarding why these Negro women want to swirl, and it makes me go back to this film because this film pretty much, you know, Gerald Roberts made these comments, about black women and swirling, way back about 20 some odd years ago. That's why, you know, I can agree with David Carroll when he makes the point that, this is nothing new because we already have a black filmmaker making the exact same points that he was making in his videos, reinforcing his points. And this film, again, this film's production values aren't the greatest, but you understand what they were saying. He was saying that, your woman has gotten tired of this Negro. She's gotten tired of black men, who aren't about anything, who aren't trying to grow, who aren't trying to change, who, can't get past a certain point, and they're stuck in a state of arrested development. They're still doing the same stupid and juvenile things in life, and this is something that people they're talking about it now, but Daryl Roberts was talking about it over 20 years ago, and nobody paid attention to it back then. But when we look at this film today, you will see that he's actually, again, he was a pioneer. He was ahead of his time. He was talking about an issue that many of these people are talking about in depth now. He was talking about it back then as part of his film, and this film really makes several great commentaries about the Afro American Negro. This film really makes you know some very thought provoking points about the Afro American Negro because Daryl Roberts, he presents you with different aspects. He presents you with the Raymond Whitfield character, who's a bit of a player. He's another fake guy. The Spoonie character, who is one of these, you know, Negroes, who's all he's all about is that getting some of that toxic nuclear waste from between the legs of one of these females. And it really was making a commentary about the dysfunctional state of your Afro American Negro man. I mean, this film really presents a clear and critical picture of your Afro-American Negro man. Now, while the Valerie character is swirling, the Thomas character starts to take a long, hard look at himself and starts to take a long, hard look, at his dysfunctional, way of thinking. And while I don't agree with some of the points in the movie, but he does, he finds another black woman who supports him and helps him, and he starts to, finally starts to get himself together. And by the time the Valerie character gets burnt with the swirling, she's thinking about going back to him. He's gotten himself together, and at the end of the movie, she finds herself outside, clown. But there are a lot of great points in this movie. There's a great scene between Sally Richardson's character Valerie and her mother, where they really talk about, interracial relationships and how, again, another point they talk about the swirling, and they talk about in this movie, what these swirlers really are. It really makes a powerful commentary, about swirling. How You Like Me Now really makes a powerful commentary about, you know, people and why they swirl, because Valerie's reasons for swirling, pretty much reinforce what David Carroll was talking about in his videos about the shallow reasons that many of these Afro American women want to swirl. They're doing it, basically not because they like a white guy or they like him for his content of his character. They're only doing it for the color of his skin and because they think they're going to get an opportunity, at a white night to come and save them from their own bad decisions. And the choices that they make in men. And this is why I say that many of these black women, what they do is they go from a chocolate pool of dysfunctional men to a vanilla pool of dysfunctional men. And, that's because they're not looking at themselves and they're not taking that look inward. And when I was watching How You Like Me Now, this film makes a lot of great points, about interracial relationships because the woman sits there and talks about what she wants to get out of this man. And the man says, in one great moment while they're walking in the park, he says to her, how are you going to pay for all this? She's talking about how she wants a penthouse, a doorman. She's expecting the white guy to be the knight in shining armor that takes her up and, saves her, and he says to her, how do you expect to afford all this stuff? He's basically saying to her, I'm not paying for any of this. He's basically, saying, I'm not paying for this. I'm not taking care of you. I'm just here. It's like David Carroll was saying. He's basically saying he's just here for the nuclear waste. He's here for his taste of the waste. But but the whole thing is that when I watch this movie again, it makes me think about everything that he had said about swirling, about the dysfunctional reasons that many of these Negro women get out here and talk about they want to swirl because they're tired of these dysfunctional Negroes being stuck in the state of arrested development that they remain stranded in, that they can't get past the mental age of about 12 or 13 years old, that they cannot grow past a certain point, and that many of these Afro-American Negro men, it takes they're too busy looking up at a woman or thinking about things they want to get out of a woman to think about seeing her as a partner, or they just can't see her as as emotionally as checked out because there's again this film has so many great points you know about these interracial relationships and swirling, and it was overlooked by many people. This was a great film that was really overlooked, and I'm urging more people, to go out and go pick up this film on DVD, because it is a great film in parts, and it makes a lot of great commentary about African Americans and African American relationships, and really tells a great story, about black people, and it really gives you, different aspects, and it really makes a great commentary on African American men, and it's really a really rock solid film that a lot of people didn't pay attention to back in the '90s, and and the whole thing is that a lot of this stuff that Daryl Roberts talked about in this film back in the '90s, we're seeing right now, and that's why I'm urging you to go out and pick up a copy of How You Like Me Now. It's on Amazon. Great performance from Sally Richardson Whitfield. Great performance from Darnell Williams, and really good film that I can highly recommend. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.